everybody, and welcome to Keeping It Real. My guest today is Reverend Judith Laxer. Hi, Judith.
Hi, Krysta.
And she is the founder and minister of Gaia's Temple in Seattle, Washington. And we've been doing our series on the Pagan Holidays, and this is the last one of the year. So Judith is going to be talking to us about Winter Solstice, Yule. She's going to talk to us about that. So give us the download on this, Judith.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. So, first of all, I just want to thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this series, and being able to just talk about these wonderful Sabbath celebrations along the wheel of the year and what they mean. And hopefully if people have been tracking them along the way, that's really helped them connect with nature in a more spiritually way, in a more spiritual way. So anyway, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Here we are coming on to Yule, which is the winter solstice, which is going to be this year, 2018, on Friday, December 21st, I think at like 2:33 or 2:32 in the afternoon, when the sun goes into Capricorn. That's the exact moment of the solstice.
Okay.
And the word solstice was derived from the meaning of sun stop, so it appeared to the ancients at the winter solstice as the sun has virtually gone away and had stopped shining and was never reaching, Just as at the summer solstice across the wheel, holding the balance for the longest day and the shortest night, it appeared as if the sun, had stopped in its full glory and there was never going to be shadow or night again.
Right.
So it means sun stop. But the solstice is the time, the winter solstice is the time when it is said that the great cosmic mother gives birth to the sun. And so it's actually the return of the light. So what's been happening since the equinox, the autumn equinox, is that the days have been growing shorter. Actually, since the last solstice, each day has been growing shorter by a few minutes each day. At the equinox, the autumn equinox, the days were shorter than the nights. And so this last period of time, this last quarter of the year, the nights have been growing longer and longer and longer. And on the solstice, it will be the longest night of the solar year. And then thereafter, the Earth tilts on her axis and the days, minute by minute, begin to go longer. In our culture, which is such a sun-worshipping culture, we're like, hey, bring back the light, bring back the light. And so it's a great celebration that the days will begin to grow longer. But it's also a time to really honor the dark. And, I was just talking about this in Gaia's Temple yesterday. Our culture is so geared toward the light, and everything is about the light, including our spiritual growth. We talk about how we want to become enlightened. We're never looking to become darkened.
Right.
But there is great value, of course, in the dark. And one of the things that I love about pagan spirituality and the whole concept of the Wheel of the Year is wholeness, which is inclusive. And so it includes not just the light and all the lovely things that we find in the sunshine, but also what resides in the dark, which can be deep and restful and fertile, and the place from which great imagination and creation occurs. In fact, all creation occurs in the dark, right? You don't see it until it comes into the light, but it doesn't mean it's not there.
Exactly.
And then, when we think about all the words that we associate with dark, most of them are not good words. They're bad words, and that's sad.
It is.
And it's unfortunate because the dark is also beautiful and it's lovely and it's part of mystery and it's part of the whole. So at the solstice, while we are certainly celebrating the return of the light, how wonderful would it be to truly spend that long dark night honoring the darkness? Because if we didn't get the time of darkness and rest, we would burn out. Right? I mean, all that light, all that fire, all that sun, if it's too much, we can fry, right? Just as there's not enough of it, we can become frozen. Exactly. So, always looking for that balance there.
Yes.
But that balance happens by honoring every aspect along the wheel and every season for its own natural beauty. So I love the dark half of the wheel. For me, this winter solstice always comes way too soon. I'm never ready for it. It's like, no, I want to keep resting in the dark. But Can't stop the wheel from turning.
That's right.
And that's actually what the word Yule means. It means wheel.
Oh.
And, we know that wheels and circles never end. There's no beginning. There's no corners and stops and starts. But because we do reckon our time by the sun and the moon, will be the beginning of a solar year, a new solar year on the 20th. So that's kind of, just the seasonal aspect of it. But ways that you can celebrate the solstice are varied and many. And many of the modern Christian traditions have their pagan origins, of course. Right. And so everything from hanging the wreath on the door, which represents the wheel of the year, and also the great mother through which all life is born, to bringing in what is now called the Christmas tree, but was originally, it was a way of, it's called the sympathetic magic, which is when you bring an evergreen into your home. The ancient pagans used to bring evergreen trees into their homes, representing evergreen and life continuing, because at this point, snow, cold, darkness, nothing growing. If you didn't really shore up your larder, you weren't really sure how you're going to make it through the winter. Right. So the tree represented that life would return and that life was ever going, and this was just one phase of it. And then the ornaments that were hung on the tree were really protective amulets, or amulets that were warding off sickness or asking for prosperity. So those became, this became the Christmas tree and became Christmas ornaments. So it's very, very interesting when you really look at what the pagan ornaments all these are. And what I love about it too in our modern times is that I can have a Christmas tree and, it's a pagan tree and it all works.
Yes, exactly. It can be what you want it to be.
Exactly. And, the lighting of candles and the stringing of lights everywhere, this is how we celebrate the return of the light, and also the light that we hold within ourselves even during the darkest times. Right. Which I think is a really good thing to keep in mind too, because we're kind of living through some pretty dark times right now. And so, as you light that candle, as you put that string of lights around your tree or hanging it on the bough, on the mantelpiece, it's good to contemplate what that light is that you want to rekindle, the light that you want to return, or the light that you are in the world, the light that you want to shine out into the world, even in the darkness. Right. So, all of those sort of, the decoration is a huge part of this time of year. And also is gift giving. Yes. And, originally we were gifting each other at this time of the year because we wanted our entire community to make it through the long, dark winter. And so if my family had a farm, for instance, and we had dried and smoked meats, then we would be gifting them to other families and farms who maybe grew wheat or had sheep. And so now there was wool, and we were all exchanging what we had so all of us could make it through together. So that tradition has become, rampant consumerism. Right. In our time. Yeah. But the concept and the idea of it was, gifting during hardship to help all of us get through. Right. And more for myself that even, because, I do holiday shopping. I've got friends and family and I shop for them. And sometimes I find myself in the stores going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I try to remember that that's the origin behind it. Right. How can you ease someone else's way and help them through? Right. So, I don't necessarily know if buying an electronic little gifty is going to help them through anything so much anymore.
But it might. But I like that, to think of that when you're shopping rather than just, I'm buying them a gift. Try to think of it in the sense of what can I give the person that will bring them joy, that will make their life easier, something like that, to have that meaning behind it. Yeah, even if it could be an electronic gizmo,
Yeah, it changes the whole way, your whole mindset around it when you're standing in line. Right. Spend money that you probably shouldn't. And so, the gift giving, of course, is a part of it. And there was something else I was just going to say that about gift giving, but the other thing also is we always wait, or most of us wait until like the 11th hour, and then we're going crazy trying to buy presents for people. And, I do a lot of canning and, preserving things from my garden all year long.
Right.
And then in the winter, so, like I'll make a batch of blackberry jam, for instance, in July or August, and then in the winter I have these little jars that I can gift people.
Right.
So I mean, not everybody does that sort of thing, but I have noticed that because I'm sort of gathering with a mindset toward what I want to gift my beloveds all during the year, then when it comes time to just take them out of the garage and put them in packages, it's a lot easier.
Easy, right.
Yeah. So there might be something about that, even if you don't can or keep a garden or they're not going to be homemade gifts.
Right.
There's something kind of keeping that in mind as you go through the year so that you don't go crazy.
Right. Buy gifts when you see them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another way to kind of ease it through the season.
Uh-huh.
And then the other thing, so rituals or celebrations that you can do, that we have so many holiday traditions. And of course, for most people who celebrate Christmas, hopefully, they go to some kind of a worship service and then they share a meal with their family or their dear beloved, somehow their friends. And, for the solstice, we kind of do the same thing. We don't necessarily go to a church, for instance, but we circle up with friends and family. And, in Gaia's temple, for instance, what we do is we are celebrating the birth of the sun again. And so we honor the Great Mother that way. And we have sort of a metaphoric rebirthing of the sun. So we have one gentleman who plays the Sun King, and we have him kind of walk through a tunnel that we make representing the birth canal, and then when he emerges on the other side and his candle is lit, we honor the return and the birth of the sun.
Nice.
It's quite beautiful.
Nice.
And then each person goes forward and they light their candle off of his, and it's like the great collective rekindling of the light. And then we all put all of our candles together in the center, on the altar in the center, and it glows in the middle like the sun. And then we sit around and sing beautiful songs and have a feast, and, it's quite lovely. So those are beautiful ways that you can celebrate the solstice also.
Right.
And then another way would be, I have a couple of friends who hold vigil all night long. They stay up all night, which is quite something to do.
Yes.
By 3 o'clock, you're like, all right, where's the coffee to keep you going? It's a way to sort of honor that long night by holding vigil. And then I'll tell you, when you start to see the sky lighten and the sunrise comes up, you are truly grateful for the return of the light. That's another thing that can be done on the solstice to sort of honor that way. But even if you don't stay up all night, on the holy days, I try not to stay too connected to technology. I try to turn the computer off. I try not to check Facebook every 5 minutes. I try to not talk on the phone so much.
Right.
And on the solstice night, it's beautiful to maybe turn the lights off. Be in the dark and utilize the season of winter for what it is best for, which is rest, deep reflection, pondering and dreaming and scheming about next year. The summer solstice is the most active time of the year. That's when we're out in our gardens and we're, just out in the world up until like 10 o'clock at night when the sun is still, when it's just twilight so late.
Right.
It's the winter solstice. We're tucking in and we're dreaming. It's not really that much of an active time. In our culture, it's become an active time because,
right.
we just consider this the most social time of the year, which is counterproductive, really, to what's going on in nature.
Right.
So by allowing yourself to be in the dark and be in the quiet and be in the stillness, and let yourself really deeply reflect on how the year has gone and perhaps what you did well or what goals you accomplished that you had set out, which ones you didn't, maybe why didn't you, what went wrong, how did you get derailed, how might you do it differently for the new year. These are great ways to spend the solstice. Reflection and letting the stillness and the quiet of winter, that's what paganism is all about. It's trying to emulate nature as best that we can, to be aligned with our natural world.
Right.
So on the winter solstice, it's not a time to, party it up.
Right. Not a time to be busy. Yeah, bring it down. Yeah, bring it down. Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
Really trying to honor, even if it's just the solstice day, by being as quiet and still, unhurried.
Yes.
As, yeah.
Sounds
So,
great. Now, I
yeah.
wanted to mention also your book, because in your book, you talk about each of these. And talk about your book just a little bit so people understand what that is about.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wrote a book called Along the Wheel of Time, Sacred Stories for Nature Lovers. And it's a collection of 8 short stories, and each story accompanies one of the Sabbats on the pagan wheel of the year. The solstices, the equinoxes, and the cross-quarter days, all the days that we've talked about in this series.
Right.
Each story is about sort of ordinary people like you and I, living their lives quite magically and spiritually connected to nature. So the Winter Solstice story is about a woman who's giving birth for the first time. She's giving birth to her first child. And that happens on the solstice. And so I kind of juxtapose what's happening in nature and how the great cosmic mother is giving birth to the sun on the solstice with a young woman who is attended by a doula at home and her husband as she gives birth.
Right.
And really, well, of course I'm going to think it's beautiful. It's a story I wrote.
Right.
You know. I think it's really quite beautiful.
Right.
Sort of metaphoric, you know, what's happening in the larger, big cosmic scheme, and also what can happen to individuals.
Right.
You know, and also how you look at what it is that you experience as you go through life. In alignment with nature and a learning there.
Yeah, and the book is really a way to bring the things that we've been talking about in this series, you know, and the turning of the wheel. Each of the stories really brings it alive. And so what would be fun if for somebody who doesn't have the book is to get it, and then as they go through this series, is read that part of the book.
Yes, exactly. And I have friends and people who have bought the book who have told me that, you know, some people just read the book the whole through, you know, straight through.
Right, sure.
But then some people didn't. They kind of kept it along that whole first year and read each Sabbath at the time of each Sabbath during the year. But then I also hear from people who have bought the book who go back to it year after year and just read that short story to help them get there again. Because, you know, life happens. Like, nature's happening out there, but my workload is insane, or I'm having trouble in my family, or I'm grappling with an illness, and so I'm not really connected to, like, what's happening in nature right now. But if you read that story, it reminds you, oh, yeah, that's the backdrop. That's the larger picture that's holding me, you know.
Right.
So,
and then
I'm pretty proud of the book.
And I wanted to mention is, besides the book, then you have Gaia's Temple. And if people go to gaiastemple.org,
correct,
they can look up your events, because even though we're recording this in 2018, somebody might be watching this in 2019. So go to your website and find out what's happening the particular year that you might be watching this. And then people who want to contact you, you have a website, judithlaxer.com.
judithlaxer.com, correct. Yeah.
So all kinds of ways to learn more and to contact you and to get more deeply involved in this if people would like to do that. Yeah.
In fact, if you are watching this in 2018, on Saturday night, December 22nd, which is actually the day after the solstice, but like I said, you know, the days grow longer minute by minute, so it's still pretty a dark time. We are having a big public celebration for the winter solstice, and everyone is welcome. So you can find that on the event page, all the details that you need to know about that. It'll be 7 o'clock in the evening.
Fabulous.
So it's going to be a lovely celebration.
I'm sure it will be. It'll be great. So thank you so much, Judith, for sharing your thoughts today and then throughout the year that we've done now. I just really appreciate it, and I know our viewers do as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a blessed solstice.
You too.